The morning light had no warmth to it. It pressed through the curtains, thin and gray, like it was checking to see if anything had changed. It hadn't. Sleep never came, only questions that refused to hush. I told myself a trip into town might quiet them, or at least point me toward something true. Naomi was already in the kitchen, humming one of her hymns, steady and soft. The house felt alive when everything else still didn't. Coffee filled the air. It should have been comforting. Instead, it just reminded me how long the days could be. I just need a day, I said finally. Something normal. Normal don't heal what's broke, Naomi murmured. The word does. I reached for my keys. I'll go into town. Need gloves, maybe boots. She nodded. Be back before dark. I'll be fine. I know, she said. That's what worries me. The truck grumbled awake. Gravel spat under the tires as I pulled onto the road, the world still damp with the kind of quiet that feels heavier than peace. Main Street almost looked kind. Brick fronts, a barber pole turning slow, cafe windows lettered with summer specials. I told myself this was simple. Just boots and gloves. Inside Boot Barn, the scent of leather hit like a memory. Daniel, trying on his first pair, turning slow, asking if I liked them. I had. Remembering was what hurt. I tried on a pair and flexed against the stiffness. One boot new, the other still scarred from fire season. It felt like standing in two different lives. Box? The clerk asked. Please. As she rang me up, my gaze snagged on a display. Rows of work boots, each stamped with a small star in the sole. My pulse jumped before I could stop it. You sell a lot of that style? I asked. Half the county wears 'em, she said. Hard to track who's who by a boot print these days. I forced a smile. Right? The bell above the door jingled. Ruth? Kenzie stood near the register, brown bag in hand, grin full of mischief. Look who's finally out of hiding. I wasn't hiding. Sure you weren't. She looped her arm through mine. Come on. Coffee before you think too hard. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and engine oil, almost enough to settle me. The bell chimed again. 2 men stood in line. Jace Moore. Bo Lawson. Kenzie elbowed me. Cowboys before caffeine. God help us. Behave, I muttered. Bo half turned. Our eyes met. Only a second, but enough to trip my pulse. He nodded, polite and unreadable. Jace smiled. Ruth Harper, didn't get to tell you I'm sorry about Daniel. Thank you. Hard to believe, he added. The last time I saw him, he was here in Stonehaven. Said he was visiting family. My grip tightened on my cup. Daniel had been here. When? Why hadn't he told me? Bo's gaze flicked to mine. Don't look at me, he said quietly. But something in his jaw tightened, and the silence that followed wasn't smooth. Kenzie exhaled. Wow, zero chill in this cafe today. I managed a thin smile. Bo paid, tipped his hat, and left with Jace. You okay? Kenzie asked. Just thinking. About him? About everything. She didn't push. I'm helping Mom at the farmer's market. Come by? I might. We both knew I wouldn't. Outside, the street felt too still. The box dug into my palm heavier than it should have been. I'd barely reached the truck when... Ruth. Bo's voice behind me, low, controlled, too close. I kept walking. Ruth. Sharper. I stopped and turned. What? He stood several paces back, breath unsteady like he'd stopped himself from following faster. His collar was damp with heat, his hands loose at his sides like he didn't trust them, or like he was holding something back. Even now, scared, suspicious, alone with him on an empty street, I registered the way he looked at me, like I was something he'd lost and couldn't stop mourning. I need to clear something up, he said quietly, about that night. I didn't move toward him, but I didn't walk away either. I wasn't lying about heading home, he said. I was. I just pulled past your gate when I saw smoke over the ridge. Something pressed hard against my ribs. Then I heard someone scream, he went on. I don't remember turning the wheel. I just came back as fast as I could. I stared at him. Why? He started to answer, something raw breaking across his face, then swallowed it back. You won't believe me anyway, he said. Silence stretched thin between us, so I told him what I did know. Our first night in Stonehaven, I said quietly. Someone came into Deacon's place. The gas was on. The burner was hot when I found it. Bo froze. What? Too soft. Too dangerous. Naomi was asleep. I wasn't. I smelled it. Someone turned it on deliberately. He stepped toward me without thinking. Too close. I stepped back. My shoulders hit the truck. He stopped immediately, hands lifting. I'm not gonna hurt you. Just tell me what happened. Thursday night, I said. Someone meant for us not to wake up. He dragged both hands through his hair, pacing one sharp step away, then back. And you've been carrying that alone for 2 days? His voice shook with fury. You didn't tell anyone? I didn't know who to trust. He flinched, like the words hit bone. For half a second, something dark crossed his face. Not at me, but at whoever I'd just described. So you thought it was me, he said quietly, not angry, hurt. I didn't, but I couldn't finish, because he wasn't wrong. He shook his head once. Hard. If you really believe I'd hurt Naomi after everything, then you don't know me at all. He turned and walked away, didn't look back. I stood there, long after he was gone, the box cutting into my palms. Had I just accused an innocent man? The look on his face when I mentioned Naomi, that wasn't guilt. That was betrayal. What if Bo had been telling the truth all along? What if he'd risked his life to save me? What if he'd given me work when I had nothing, kept his distance when I made it clear I didn't trust him, only for me to throw this at him? I'd practically accused him of trying to murder his own family. The street felt too empty without him. At the truck, I reached for the door and froze. 2 matches lay tucked beneath the windshield wiper. Neat, crossed, red-tipped. A message, a warning, a promise. Someone had been close enough to touch my truck, close enough to watch me. A black pickup rolled by slow, windows tinted dark, a hat low behind the wheel. Watching. I set the matches on the passenger seat beside my coffee. My hands shook. Don't read too much into it, I told myself. Too late. By the time I pulled into Naomi's drive, the sky had gone the color of ash. I killed the engine and sat there, heart pounding. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Playing with fire, Harper? Another buzz. Careful what you light. Brookdale area code. Home. Or what used to be. My fingers went numb around the phone. Someone from Brookdale was here. Someone who knew where I'd gone. Someone who wanted me scared. I'd pushed away the one man who'd ever run toward the fire for me, and someone out there clearly thought I just made their job easier. If I was wrong about Bo, I was alone. Completely alone. That night I left the porch light burning, a small, stubborn glow against the dark. I told myself it was for Naomi, but the truth was simpler. I wasn't ready to trust the shadows again. Sunday passed like a held breath. I went through the motions, laundry on the line, Naomi's church shoes by the door, her prayers drifting through the screen, but my mind stayed on the matches and the text from an unknown number with a Brookdale area code. Every time a car slowed outside, I looked up. Every time a floorboard creaked, I wondered if it was the same watcher from town. By nightfall, I'd convinced myself it didn't matter. Monday would. Work always did. The sun had barely cleared the hills when I turned down the ranch road. Dust curled in the mirror, and the smell of hay hit warm and familiar. Up ahead I caught sight of 2 figures by the main barn, Bo and Cole. I eased off the gas before they could notice, letting the truck roll to a stop behind a line of rusted equipment half buried in weeds. The engine ticked as it cooled. I cracked the window an inch. Cole's voice carried through the still morning air. smooth but sharp at the edges. Can't keep patching holes and calling it a roof. This ranch is bleedin' money. Sooner or later, you'll have to pick a side. Bo's reply came low and even. We're not doing business your way. Cole gave a short, humorless laugh. My way keeps the lights on. Yours just keeps ghosts fed. Bo stepped closer, his shadow cutting long across the dirt. The cigarette's tip flared between them, small and violent against the dawn. Stay out of my work, Cole. Last I checked, Cole said, flicking ash to the ground, it's still Lawson land. All of it. The words hung there, heavy and familiar. Then Cole dropped the cigarette, crushed it under his boot, and walked off toward the road. Unhurried, unbothered, smoke trailing behind him. Bo stayed a moment longer, shoulders drawn tight like he was holding something heavier than pride. I stayed too, silent, breath shallow, knuckles white on the steering wheel, money, sides, promises, whatever business Cole meant, it wasn't clean. And Bo, he sounded like a man trying to keep the flood from rising. If Cole was the one opening the gates, maybe the fires weren't just accidents after all. When Cole's truck finally rumbled away down the road, I eased my door open and stepped out, careful not to let it slam. The morning air was thick with dust and tension. By the time I rounded the corner toward the pens, Bo was already gone. The yard shifted back into motion like nothing had happened. Hoses hissing, gates clanging, hot iron waking faster than the sun. Mara met me halfway, ledger tucked to her chest like it had a pulse. New girl's here, she announced to the air, not to me. Her smile curved clean as wire. Let's see if yesterday was luck. Luck would have slept in, I said, keeping my hands in my pocket so the bandages wouldn't show. South fence needs clearing, she went on. Weeds, trash, whatever's trying to crawl through. Watch for snakes. If you scream, make it interesting. I nodded and headed for the shed to grab a rake and clippers. The metal door groaned when I pulled it open, heat already pooling inside. Bo was there, setting down a feed sack near the wall. He looked up, eyes catching mine for a second before dropping to the bandages on my hand. Gonna be a hot one, he said, wiping his forearm across his brow. Make sure you take water. I will. Up close, he looked like he hadn't slept much either. Shadows under his eyes, a tightness at his mouth. Even now, unsettled and sore from yesterday, it did something strange to my chest that he still bothered to notice whether I drank water. He nodded once, more to the air than to me, and stepped past into the sunlight. Jace jogged by with a coil of rope. Bo, you still want me to top off the tanks? We're burning through diesel faster than usual. Bo didn't look at him. Later. South fence first. He slid his phone deeper into his pocket like it had started to ring. At diesel, something in me went still. Maybe it was nothing. His answer came a little too fast, a little too flat. I filed it away anyway. I seem to be collecting more questions than answers these days. Beyond the pens, the pasture opened in long breaths of grass, cicadas warming their engines. I headed for the south line, the hum of work at my back, the quiet of trees waiting ahead. If sweat could scrub a soul, I meant to come back clean. The south fence cut through wild ground the mower never bothered with. Knee-high grass, thistle, the sweet rot of last year's leaves. I worked slow, the sun climbing steady, every pull of the rake tugging through roots and regret. Sweat slid down my spine, more penance than effort. The rake teeth snagged on something hard. I tugged once, twice, then knelt. The earth gave around a gray curve of stone. At first I thought it was a buried fence post, but the edge was smooth, deliberate. I brushed dirt back with my gloved hands until letters appeared. Margaret Lawson, loving mother, 1970 to 2022. Another stone waited beside it, smaller, cut from the same granite. James Lawson, father, 1968 to 2018. The names lay in the sun, quiet as prayer. Naomi had told me once, softly, like she was setting down glass, how the drink took Bo's dad, and illness followed behind for his mom. I'd known the story, but not the weight of it, not until now. I cleared the next patch, heart knocking like I'd stepped into something sacred. More grass fell away beneath the rake. 2 stones emerged. Clara Lawson, beloved wife, 1995 to 2023. Beside it sat another marker, smaller, untouched. No name, just a single date, 2023. My breath caught. Same year, same day, mother and child. Graves on the Lawson land, his parents, his wife, his baby. Grief wasn't just something Bo carried. It was buried into his soil. You said you are near to the broken-hearted. Then why take them both? Wasn't one enough? The thought rose bitter and honest, but it didn't echo back empty the way it used to. It landed close, like someone was still listening. The air shifted behind me before I heard him. What are you doing? Bo's voice came quiet, rough, not curious, accusing. I turned fast. He stood at the edge of the clearing, shoulders rigid, jaw set. His hands were fists at his sides, knuckles white on the brim of his hat. Get up. Flat, hard. Not the man who'd steadied me at the funeral. Not the one who'd held me in the creek. I stood, dirt on my knees, the rake forgotten. Bo, I'm sorry. Who sent you here? His eyes stayed on the stones. Mara? She said the south fence needed... She knew better. His voice sharpened. Everyone does. He finally looked at me, and the pain there stole my breath. Everyone knows better. I didn't mean to. Doesn't matter what you meant. His voice cracked on the edge of something dangerous. You shouldn't be here. I was honoring them, I said softly, clearing the weeds, making sure they... Not here, not today. You don't get to honor them. The words hit sharp. You don't know them. You don't know me, and you don't get to stand on their graves and tell me what you were doing. I flinched. He dragged a hand down his face and turned away. Go home, Miss Harper. The formality cut worse than the words. A door slamming shut. Bo, I said go. Low, final. I'll see you Monday. He knelt with his back to me, a wall I couldn't cross. I stood a moment longer, throat burning, then gathered the rake with shaking hands and left. Behind me, I heard it, low, broken, barely a whisper on the wind. Lord, keep my girls. The wind took it. I wasn't meant to hear. By the time I reached the barn, my hands were shaking so hard I dropped the rake twice. Mara stood by the gate, ledger under her arm, watching me with something like satisfaction. Didn't take, huh? I didn't answer, didn't trust my voice. Word of advice? She stepped closer, voice dropping. Some men don't want saving, and some ground's too sacred to walk on uninvited. You knew, I said raw. You sent me there on purpose. Her smile thinned. You wanted real work. That's as real as it gets. I wanted to cut her with something as sharp as what Bo had just said to me. Instead, I walked past her toward the shed. He'll get over it, she called. He always does. But when I looked back, she was already walking away, and I wasn't sure if she meant comfort or warning. Bo didn't come back to the main barn the rest of the afternoon. I saw him once, a shadow against the far pasture, working alone. His movements were sharp, angry. When Jace called about a loose gate, Bo just pointed and kept walking. Leave him be, Jace muttered when he caught me staring. He gets like this sometimes. Storm passes. How long? I asked. Jace shrugged. Day, week, depends. I threw myself into work, mucking stalls, moving hay, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. But every time I heard boots on gravel, my heart jumped. He never came. By late afternoon, my shoulders ached and my palms burned beneath the gloves. The sun hung low, brushing everything copper and gold. That's when I saw him again. He stood by the fence near the equipment shed, hat in hand, staring at nothing or everything. His shoulders were drawn tight like he was holding the weight of the world and refusing to set it down. I almost kept walking, almost kept my head down. But the way he stood there, alone, exhausted, grieving, made me stop. Bo. He didn't turn. Thought you'd left? Not yet. I moved closer, slow, like approaching a wounded animal. I'm sorry for earlier. I didn't know. I know, he said quietly, worn thin. It wasn't your fault. Still felt like it. He looked at me then. The anger was gone, just exhaustion and something like shame. I shouldn't have said what I did, he said. You were doing your job, and you were... He swallowed. You were being kind. I couldn't see it. He scrubbed a forearm across his jaw. A dark smudge streaked his sleeve. Soot, maybe, or brand smoke. Either way, he didn't notice. I pretended I hadn't. You don't have to explain. Yeah, I do. He set his hat on the post and rubbed both hands over his face. My wife and our daughter, same day, same hour. My breath caught. Bo, she lived 30 seconds, he said. His voice broke on the number. The doctor put her in my arms. Said she was strong for her size. She breathed 3 times. His hand closed to a fist. Then she stopped trying. The words fell like stones into still water. Even when Clara's breath turned shallow, he went on, she kept that baby against her chest. I sat there holding her hand, watching her slip, while those tiny fingers curled around mine. He swallowed hard. Then Clara was gone, just like that, and the nurse lifted our little girl out of her arms and into mine, warm for a minute, eyes fluttering like she was fighting to stay. He exhaled, ragged. 30 seconds of father, a lifetime remembering it. Silence settled deep. Even the cicadas softened, like they understood reverence. You held her, I said quietly. That's not nothing. He shook his head once. Some days it feels like everything. Some days it's worse. Something in my chest cracked. 2 people who had watched the light leave someone they loved. 2 people who knew what it was to hold on and still lose. 2 people standing too close in the aftermath of different fires. Daniel should have been here for this conversation. Clara should have been alive to roll her eyes at him and tell him to stop blaming himself. Instead, it was just us. 2 survivors sharing a grief no one else on this land could quite touch. And I hated how much that made me need him in that moment. I know the feeling, I said. My throat burned. His gaze flicked to me, recognition settling in. He straightened, dusting his jeans. The breeze tugged his shirt. Hay and cedar moved between us. You should eat, he said. He pulled a rag-wrapped bundle from his pocket and set it in my hands. Warm. Cornbread. You worked hard today, he added. Don't have to prove anything more. The simple kindness nearly undid me. He'd lashed out, then circled back with an apology and food. Naomi and Daniel woven into one gesture. Thank you, I managed. He nodded once. See you Monday, Ruth. Not Miss Harper. Ruth. He said my name like it cost him something, like he was trying to keep distance and failing. For one heartbeat, too long, I imagined closing the space between us, leaning into someone who understood the shape of my loss. Then Daniel's face rose in my mind. The thought felt like betrayal. He reached for his hat, then stopped. And Ruth, stay off the east fence line till I say. Why? It's rough country. His gaze flicked toward the ridge and away. No sense borrowing trouble. It sounded like more than terrain, forgiveness and caution in the same breath. My work got simpler after that. Less to say, more to carry. The crew's noise thinned with the heat. Mara's voice carried orders. Jace cursed a stubborn gait. For a heartbeat, life almost felt normal. When I leaned against the fence, the sky burned red behind the ridge. Bo's shadow crossed mine, long and steady, heading for the barn. He didn't stop. I didn't ask him to. The space between us felt too small and too large all at once. If I stepped closer, I'd be betraying Daniel. If I stepped back, I'd be alone with grief forever. I sat a while with the cornbread in my lap, watching the light drain until the world turned blue-gray. Waiting. The kind of stillness that feels like it's listening back. By the time I stood, the air had cooled and the first stars showed. I headed for the truck. Exhaustion dragged like a second shadow. Gravel shifted under my boots. Then it came. A whistle. Low, tuneless, drawn out just long enough to say it wasn't wind. It stopped as soon as I turned. The hair on my neck prickled. Nothing moved along the fence line, but the silence carried weight, like the whole field was caught between heartbeats. "Bo?" I called, barely above a whisper. No answer, only the soft creak of the barn door and cattle settling for the night. I told myself it was nothing. The lie didn't settle. I flicked the truck's high beams twice before pulling out. I locked the door out of habit. As I eased off the ranch road, a porch light flickered at a small house near the fence line. Cole sat in a rocker, one boot braced on the rail. A cigarette ember flared when he looked up. He didn't wave, didn't have to. In the rear view, the ridge stood dark against the last scrape of light, watching. The only time I'd felt remotely steady all day had been standing beside the fence with Bo. His voice low and honest, warm cornbread in my hands. That scared me almost as much as the whistle. If mercy comes in pieces, maybe this was one. A warning, a meal, and the reminder that some silences aren't empty. They're waiting. I drove home with the windows down, letting the wind carry the smoke and dust off me. By the time Naomi's porch light came into view, I still couldn't tell if I was chasing peace or just outrunning the truth. The porch light caught the tired edges of Naomi's smile when I pulled in. "You look like the day took more out of you than it gave back," she said. Something like that. I handed her the brown sack Bo had pressed into my palm. Cornbread. She took it gently, thumb resting on the grease stains. "Warm?" "Barely." Her expression softened. Bo's mama used to bring cornbread to every church supper in this county. Guess he learned her ways. Maybe he just didn't want it to go to waste. Naomi gave me a knowing look. "Nothing the Lord hands out ever goes to waste, child. Even the small things." She set the sack on the counter. "Caroline called earlier. They're holding a dinner at the church for the Millers. You're coming?" "I'm worn out." "You don't go 'cause you're rested," she said. "You go 'cause you're not." The church basement smelled like brisket and lemon cleaner, like every supper Naomi ever made me go to when I was dating Daniel. Folding tables stretched wall to wall, covered in casseroles that all claimed somebody's grandmother. Fans ticked slow overhead, pushing the scent of barbecue and cornbread through the room. Caroline spotted us the second we stepped in. Her smile came wide and real. "Well, I'll be. Look who the Lord finally dragged in." Naomi gave a modest nod. "We heard the Millers could use a few extra prayers." Caroline waved us toward the serving line. "Plates are by the end. Take what you can carry. The cobbler's fresh out the oven. Kenzie swears it's the best one she's ever made." Kenzie popped her head up from behind the dessert table, cheeks pink and hair half undone. She's not lying either. I used real butter this time. I laughed under my breath, grabbing a plate. Naomi loaded hers high. Mine stayed half empty. The hum of voices and scrape of chairs felt too normal for how strange my world still was. "Come sit," Caroline said, waving us toward a long table near the front, "before I lose my nerve to pray over this much food." We sat. A few others joined, some faces I knew, most I didn't. Then Bo slid into the empty chair beside me, the faint scent of cedar and dust following him. My breath caught. The air changed like the space itself had been waiting for him. Or maybe just me. I shouldn't have noticed the way his shoulder nearly brushed mine. Shouldn't have registered that he chose this seat when there were empty ones across the room. Daniel used to sit on my left at church suppers, always. Said it was because I was better with a fork in my right hand. Now Bo sat where Daniel should have been, and I didn't know if that was comfort or betrayal. Caroline clapped for quiet. All right, before it gets cold. The room stilled, heads bowed. Her voice carried steady through the hum of ceiling fans. Lord, we thank you for hands that work and hearts that give. Bless the Millers tonight. They lost their barn, but not their hope. Let this food and fellowship remind us what can't be burned. My stomach turned. That was Thursday's fire, the one we passed on the ridge. 4 days. That was all it took for smoke to turn into casseroles and condolences. A soft amen rippled through the tables. Forks scraped. The room came alive again. Bo reached for the square pan, still warm from the oven. You like the crispy edges or the soft middle? Edges, I said. He grinned. Good. Guess we're on the same side of a holy argument. He cut 2 edge pieces from the pan, each with plenty of crust, and set one on my plate before taking the other for himself. Our fingers brushed when he passed it over barely, but enough to make my pulse forget its pace. I pulled my hand back too fast. Daniel used to fight me for the corner pieces. Used to win too because I'd let him. Now Bo was giving me first pick, and the ease that should have felt like kindness just felt like I was replacing one man with another. Thanks, I managed. He looked at me like he knew what I wasn't saying. Maybe he did. Maybe he was fighting the same ghosts at his own table. I couldn't help the small laugh that slipped out a breath later. Don't tell Naomi you said that. She already knows, he said, eyes glinting. Ease settled in my chest then, ease that hadn't in a long time, and the guilt of it pinched, sharp and small, right under my ribs. Across the room, Mara's laugh cut through the chatter, sharp enough to draw a few looks. 3 barns gone this season, she said. Folks ought to know. Things catch fire easy when people get too careless. The words hung thick as smoke. Bo's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn. She likes her gossip louder than her prayers. Don't pay her mind. Still, I said, setting my fork down, 3 barns feels like more than carelessness. Lightning's got a temper this year, he said. Too easy. Funny, I said. I haven't seen a storm in weeks. He didn't answer, just reached for his coffee. Kenzie appeared beside us. Friday night. Dance hall. Everyone who's anyone's going. You setting the guest list again? Bo asked. You comin'? She shot back. I'll be there. She turned to me. And you? I don't dance. Doesn't matter, Bo said quietly. You'll figure it out. Save me a dance, he added. Low, steady, my throat closed. I'll think about it. He looked at me like he knew that wasn't the truth. Naomi squeezed my hand under the table. You can't outwork grace, she whispered. Sometimes it just sits down beside you. The parking lot was quiet when I stepped out. Too quiet. The truck's front tire sagged flat, sliced clean. Bo crouched beside it. That's not from drive-in. He fixed it without fuss, without questions. You shouldn't have been out here alone, he said. I can take care of myself. I know, he said. Doesn't mean you have to. When I pulled into Naomi's drive, the porch light still burned steady, small, stubborn, waiting. Bo's words echoed. You don't have to be alone. Daniel had said the same thing once, and wanting to believe it again felt like the worst kind of betrayal. I turned off the ignition and went inside, alone, like I deserved to be. The week settled into a rhythm, work, dust, and the kind of tired that felt almost good. Mornings came early. Nights came quiet. By Friday, the heat had turned the air heavy, and the ranch hum restless, everyone talking about the dance like it was the only thing left worth waiting for. When I got home, the house smelled like Naomi's cobbler and Kenzie's hairspray. She was already perched at the kitchen table, lipstick in one hand, a black dress draped over the other. Well, look what the cat dragged in, she said, grinning. Heard you've been busy catching more than cattle this week. I hung my hat on the hook. Don't start. Oh, I'm startin', she said, standing to circle me. Bo Lawson's got eyes for you, and you know it. Hasn't talked this much to a woman in years. Since Clara, maybe? It's not like that. She arched a brow. Uh-huh. Then you won't mind wearing this. She tossed me the dress. I'm not going. Yes, you are. Her grin widened. I already told half the town I'd drag you if I had to. My stomach twisted. Half the town. Which meant half the town would see me in a dress, would see me dancing, would see me with Bo, would see me acting like Daniel had never existed. Kenzie, nope, you're going, and you're gonna have fun, even if it kills you. I laughed despite myself, hollow and sharp. You're impossible. Yeah, she said, reaching for her purse. But I'm right. 15 minutes. Truth was, I'd already decided to go the second she said his name. The gravel lot buzzed, headlights, laughter, boots on boards. A neon beer sign blinked like a tired heartbeat over the old hall. Fiddle cut sharp through the night. Kenzie squeezed my hand. 15 minutes. If you hate it, we leave. I won't hate it, I lied. Inside was heat and motion, denim swirling, hats tipping, sawdust soft underfoot. For a breath, the joy in the room made me feel like an intruder. Then someone looked up, then another. I felt the shift. The way eyes found me, held a beat too long, then looked away. A widow at a dance, in a blue dress, with Daniel barely in the ground. The gossip would start before I even made it to the floor. Then the heat shifted, like the room remembered what fire felt like. Cole Lawson leaned on the pool table, cigarette hanging from his mouth. He watched me, not the band. When our gazes locked, he smiled like a man who'd already chosen the ending. Diesel, whiskey, smoke. I looked away first. Come on, Kenzie laughed, tugging me toward the floor. We stumbled through a fast two-step, then found a rhythm. For a minute, I even forgot the ache. Breathing felt like a thing I might remember how to do. When the song slid soft, I stepped back to the wall to catch air. Bo stood near the bar, brim low, eyes steady. He crossed the room like he'd decided to. Looks like you saved me one, he said. I don't dance much anymore. Then I'll owe you. Barely a smile, more invitation than tease. He didn't reach. He let the choice sit between us. Up close, he smelled like soap and sun, the kind of clean that comes from work, not cologne. His gaze caught, slid down, then back up. Hesitant, almost shy. You look. I huffed out a breath, nervous laughter catching. Ridiculous. Kenzie made me wear it. No, he said, shaking his head once. You look good. He stopped, the corner of his mouth curving. Haven't seen you like this before. Something in me went still. Not fear, something quieter. The kind that comes when someone sees you after a long time of being invisible. My pulse kicked, sudden and traitorous. Guess there's a first time for everything. He smiled, slow and sure. Reckon there is. Across the room, Mara clocked the space between us. Her smile thinned to wire. A chair scraped hard by the bar. Voices rose. Whitaker, barely 21 and 2 beers past wise, squared up to a man in a black jacket, stitched with the same patch Cole wore to Daniel's funeral. A block B strangled in thorns. Funny how your boss's herd grows when other folks' fences don't, Whitaker said. The man didn't answer, just smiled, thin and mean. Another stepped up beside him. Same jacket, same mark. Whitaker's hand twitched toward his beer. He never made it. One of the men swung first. The crack of it cut through the fiddle like thunder. Whitaker stumbled back into a chair, blood bright on his lip. The second man moved in. Another hit, low and fast. The air stank of diesel and whiskey. The crowd went quiet. Cole pushed off the pool table. That's enough, he said, voice low but carrying. He stepped between them and Whitaker, flicked ash to the floor. You do well to keep your nose out of other folks' business, he said, calm, almost conversational. Cole's eyes flicked to his men. Outside. They hesitated, then obeyed. The door banged once behind them. For a heartbeat, silence held. Then the music stumbled back to life, weak and off-tempo. Bo was already moving. He crossed the floor, not toward the fight, but toward me and Kenzie, shoulders set. "Stay back," he said, stepping in front of us. Cole turned, smoke curling from the cigarette now tucked behind his ear. "Look at you," he drawled. "Always trying to play hero. Still think everyone needs saving from you?" Bo didn't rise to it. "Not everyone," he said quietly. "Just the ones you drag into your trouble." For a heartbeat, the two brothers stood toe to toe, the air charged, the crowd holding its breath. Cole flexed his hand once, knuckles already swelling. "Wouldn't want things to get ugly." He tipped his hat, turned, and walked out. The emblem on their jackets flashed once before the door shut on the smoke. Someone helped Whitaker up. The band limped into a waltz. Nobody danced. Bo stayed where he was, jaw tight, hands braced on the bar like not hitting back cost him something. The air in my lungs stayed put. He turned, looking at me like he was making sure I'd seen what he hadn't said. Kenzie reappeared with 2 sweet teas. Well, that was festive. "Who were they?" I asked. She grimaced. "Blackthorn. Cole's crowd." Blackthorn. The name landed heavy. Outside, the night pressed close. Crickets, dust, a far-off truck shifting gears. Bo walked with us, hands in his pockets. "Thank you," I said. "You don't owe me that." "I know." I hesitated. "Still, I do." He looked at me then. Really looked. "I'm not much good at letting people help," I admitted. "You get used to it again," he said. The quiet stretched, gentle, uncertain. He tipped his hat. "Get home safe, Harper." Kenzie's keys jingled. "We should go." Across the lot, Cole leaned on his black truck, cigarette ember low. The Thornby flashed in our headlights as we passed. The tires hummed steady. "Strange how 2 brothers can be completely different," I said. Kenzie exhaled. "I remember when they weren't." "What changed?" "Their daddy died. Ranch went to hell. Cole tried to save it his way. Bo tried to save it his. Neither one won." The road rolled on. "Lord," I breathed, "don't let me build a home in ruins." By the time Naomi's porch light cut the road, the smell of smoke had followed me home. I sat in the dark a moment. I'd wanted Bo to lead me onto that floor. Wanted to forget, just for 3 minutes, that I was a widow. The guilt sat heavier than the night. I'd gone to that dance for Bo, and that felt like a betrayal I didn't know how to name. Inside, I hung the dress on the back of the door. The fabric swayed once, then stilled. Blue against worn wood, like evidence I couldn't quite hide. And beneath it all, one certainty burned steady as a struck match. The fire here wasn't done yet. Naomi was up before the sun. Coffee already brewed, a grocery list tucked under her phone. She pressed the folded paper and a few bills into my hand. "Market's low on sugar and salt again. Caroline says grab extra jars if they've got any left." She hesitated, eyes flicking to my bandaged hands. "Fine," I said, sharper than I meant. She didn't flinch, just squeezed my wrist, the kind of touch that asks a question and answers it too. The truck coughed awake. The first hint of fall skimmed the fields, a cool edge on the air that made the grass shine pale. Stonehaven sat quiet in the morning light like it had never seen a fight. Windows washed, flags fresh, lies practiced. The bell over the door jingled when I walked in. Same place folks bought feed, fertilizer, jars, and the latest excuses. Hay dust floated in slow shafts. A radio whispered country hits and weather updates. I was halfway to the shelves when the kid at the counter turned his head, and the bruise found me before his name did. Whitaker, jaw swollen, one eye purpled to ink, a split at the corner of his mouth gone scab thin. "Morning, Harper," he said like it didn't hurt to move his face. "You should let urgent care take a look at that." "Ain't nothing." He loaded his items onto the counter like the movement might shield him. "Cole's men hit you hard enough to drop you to the floor." A muscle in his cheek jumped. "Don't make it news." "It already is. Whole hall saw. Then you know better than to keep talking. His voice dropped low, careful. Blackthorn's got the work. You cross him, your boss gets a visit, or your fence gets cut. Cops can't fix a man who owns every road to a paycheck. So you just let them walk? The anger came up hot and clean. He swallowed, throat working. You didn't see anything, Harper. Safer that way. He slid his receipt into his pocket. Please. He didn't wait for my answer. He tugged his cap low and left, fear trailing behind him like smoke you couldn't wash out of clothes. The clerk rang me up. 2 bags of sugar, a sack of salt, a box of jars taped like it had already been opened once. I paid, loaded the truck, and sat behind the wheel long enough to taste the metal of my own teeth. Safer that way. For who? I turned the key. The engine caught. If he won't report it, I told the dash, I will. I parked a block over and walked, letting the wind scrape the dust off me. By the time the Stonehaven police station came into view, brick faded, blinds uneven, I wasn't angry anymore, just done. Inside smelled like burnt coffee and old polish. 2 officers leaned behind a half door trading jokes about the game. One glanced at me, then back to his phone. Sheriff Avery's glass door stood open, blinds crooked like a tired smile. He looked up when I knocked. Mrs. Harper, he said, standing. Good timing. Detective Morrison down in Brookdale called last week. Wanted to know if I'd heard from you. What's he want? To make sure you're still standing, Avery said, motioning me in, and to see if you turned up anything worth filing before the clock runs out. He didn't say how long that was, but the tone did. Guess that puts us somewhere around halfway. He gestured to the chair across from him. Come on in. What can I do for you? Cole Lawson's men jumped a boy half his size in front of a crowd last night, I said. No one stepped in. This morning Whitaker told me to keep quiet because Blackthorn owns the work. Avery's jaw tightened. I heard. Sent an officer after the fact. By the time he got there, the crowd had scattered and nobody saw a thing. He leaned forward. You willing to put your name on a statement? Yes. Will Whitaker? No. The word came out like a curse. He says it's safer to forget. Avery opened a drawer, pulled out a yellow legal pad, and wrote the date across the top, another small brick in a long, hard wall. Tell me exactly what you saw, he said. I told him. Whitaker's words, the 2 men in Blackthorn jackets, the way Cole stepped in only to call them off. When I finished, he set the pen down. Daniel should have been here for this, should have been the one making the statement, standing beside me, promising we'd get justice for Whitaker. Instead, I was doing it alone. Except, not quite. Whether I liked it or not, Bo Lawson kept showing up in the same shadows I walked through, pulling me from fire, standing between me and flying fists, offering help I didn't know how to take. I've been watching Cole 3 years, Avery said finally. He's not just muscle. He handles half of what Blackthorn touches, leases, payoffs, threats. He's their man in the field, but not the only one giving orders. So the fires, I asked. You think they're tied? I think the same men who cut fences don't mind lighting them, but I can't say who struck which match. Not yet. People whisper their barns burn when they don't sell. They're whispering the right name, he said. But I can't arrest a rumor. I need something that doesn't burn. What kind of something? Receipts, fuel drums that don't match delivery logs, boot prints that line up with their crew, a contract that shows money moving, anything tying Blackthorn or Cole to the fire. What if I find it? He met my gaze. Then you bring it straight to me. Don't brag you've got it. Don't confront him, and don't assume you're the only one looking. I understand. And Ruth. He paused. Be careful where you stand at night. Blackthorn doesn't like being seen. Sun punched the square wide open. Across the street, a black truck angled along the curb, paint so clean it drank the light. The window rolled down. Cole didn't move, just watched. A thin curl of smoke rising from the open cab, before the engine turned over. He watched me like a man who already knew why I'd come. Our eyes caught. He tipped 2 fingers off the steering wheel, a motion so small you could call it manners if you were a fool. I didn't look away until I meant to. When I did, I walked slower than my legs wanted, straighter than my fear suggested. Ruth? Bo's voice. My heart kicked before I turned. He leaned against my truck, a man who could wait without fidgeting. A grease smudge marked his forearm, and a diesel receipt curled from his pocket. Sleeves rolled to his elbows, hat brim low against the sun. He looked like he'd been working, looked like Daniel used to after a long morning in the barn, and for one guilty second, I was glad to see him. What are you doing here? Fuel station's right across the street, he said. Had to top off after running diesel out to Mr. Thompson last week. Old man ran dry again. My chest went still. The diesel, the phone call. Thursday night. He hadn't been leaving to start a fire. He'd been delivering fuel to an old man who needed it. All this time I'd been building a case against him in my head. Every diesel smell, every phone call, every burn on his sleeve. And it was just ranch work. Just Bo being Bo, helping people like he'd helped me. He watched me carefully. You okay? Yeah, I said, the lie catching in my throat. Never mind. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. And I owed him an apology I didn't know how to give. His gaze slid past me to the black truck, stayed there for a moment, then came back. What's going on? I told Sheriff Avery what happened to Whitaker, I said, and about the rumors. He says Cole runs half the operation but needs proof before anyone listens. Bo's jaw flexed. He's right about Cole. Wrong if he thinks it stops there. You think Cole's lighting the fires? Bo looked toward the square. He's made choices he can't outrun. But starting those fires, he shook his head. That's not the brother I know. Not yet. You just keep your head down, Ruth. I'll help you find what you need. But don't try to solve every evil this side of the county tonight. He didn't grab my hand, just brushed his knuckles against mine. The touch was brief, barely there, but I felt it everywhere. Daniel used to do that, touch my hand in passing, a reminder he was close even when we couldn't talk. Now Bo's knuckles grazed mine, and my pulse forgot Daniel entirely. Just for a second, just long enough to feel like betrayal. I'm with you, he said, quiet as a vow, whether you ask or not. The words landed like shelter I didn't deserve, and I wanted to lean into it so badly it scared me. Wanted to let him be the wall between me and whatever was coming. But accepting his help felt like replacing Daniel, like admitting I needed someone new to stand where my husband used to. Maybe that's what a vow really is. Standing when the fire comes, not before it. And maybe that's what terrified me most. That Bo was already standing there, and I was starting to need him to. The black truck idled across the square, engine low, a brief flare of light inside before it snapped out. Cole's face turned toward us, eyes unreadable through the glare. For a second, I thought about walking closer, just to read his expression and know what kind of storm he was carrying. But Bo's words echoed back. He didn't think Cole was the one setting the fires. Maybe I wanted to believe that too. Bo didn't look at him. He watched me instead, calm as a prayer answered halfway. When the truck rolled on, the space between us felt thin as wire, humming with everything neither of us dared to say. You going home? He asked. I've got Naomi's groceries to deliver and a mind full of bad ideas. Save one good one, he said. Keep track of what you've heard. Who said what? Who stopped talking when Blackthorn's name came up? Rumors turn into evidence if you follow the right one long enough. We? I said I'm with you. My chest loosened. Not relief exactly, but permission to breathe. All right, I said. I rolled out of town with 2 bags of sugar, a sack of salt, and a box of jars clinking a rhythm in the cab. In the mirror, Bo's headlights stayed back, close enough to see, far enough to let me lead. I thought of the list I'd already started. the one tucked beneath Daniel's Bible. Boot print with a star, red half-singed rag with diesel smell. Letter that said, "Leave it buried." Threat text, unknown number with a Brookdale area code. And now, rumors tied to a name with too much money and too little soul. Not enough, not nothing. At Naomi's, the porch smelled faintly of coffee and rain. She took the grocery bags with both hands, sleeves rolled to her elbows, and didn't ask where I'd been. Not yet. "Sit," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You look worn clear through." "Just tired," I said. The lie sat heavy. The coffee maker hissed low, steady in the quiet. I leaned against the counter, heat from the mug warming my palms. "You've been thinking too loud again," Naomi said finally. "Whatever it is, you best bring it to the Lord before it eats holes in you." "I've been trying," I muttered, "but every prayer sounds more like an argument." "That's still prayer, child," she said softly. "The Lord can take honesty better than silence." I stared out at the window. "Then I'm asking for help to do this hard thing, to see what I need to see, to keep my mouth shut long enough to do it right." Naomi's gaze drifted toward the horizon. "I still miss Harperland," she whispered. "The smell after rain, the sound of the herd at night. It don't feel right being anywhere else." "We'll see it again," I said before I could doubt it. "Harper Ranch will stand proud one day, whole, alive, and ours." Naomi's eyes warmed, grief and hope holding hands. "I hope you're right, Ruth," she said softly. "I really do." I stood in the hush while the house breathed around me. "Help me find the truth," I whispered. "Help me keep the people I love alive while I do." Outside, a truck eased past the end of the lane. Slow, then gone. Maybe any truck, maybe not. I added one more line to the list in my head. Someone's keeping score. The quiet settled again, steady and claiming. I wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. I was chasing names, and I wasn't doing it alone. Bo had said he was with me. Daniel would have said the same thing. The difference was, Daniel was gone, and Bo was here, standing in the gap my husband left behind. And every day I let him, it felt a little less like betrayal, and a little more like survival. Morning bit hard at the edges. I beat the sun to the Lawson yard, Bo's promise still echoing, "I'm with you." Daniel's voice was gone. Some mornings, the guilt came first. Some mornings, the grace. I never knew which one I'd be handed until my boots hit dirt. "Keep your head down, keep your hands steady," I told myself, and maybe God will keep watch over what I can't fix. "Early bird," Lexi called, breath ghosting in the cold. "You don't have to prove anything, Harper." "I'm not proving," I said. "I'm working." Work was the only thing that still felt like control. By 7, the crew rolled in. Mara swung off her mare like she owned sunrise. "You're on the North Penn," she said lightly, like a kindness. "Should be simple, if the wire behaves." Lexi frowned. "North Penn. Thought that one was still waiting on a check." Mara brushed dust from her sleeve. "Cole mentioned it looked rough when he drove by yesterday. Figured we'd knock it out first." Jace's mouth tightened. "That pen's been touchy since the last storm." Mara smiled past him. "She can handle it." I could. I would. If I kept moving, I wouldn't think. I skipped water when Lexi offered it, skipped the biscuit she tucked in my palm. "Later," I said. Later never came. The North Penn looked harmless from 50 feet, frost bright on every barb. Up close, the splice wasn't storm-snagged or weather-worn. It was forced wrong. 2 new nails bent through the wire at angles no wind could have managed, like someone wanted it to hold just long enough to betray the next hand that pulled. My stomach said, "Ask for help." My pride said no. I braced my knee, gripped the wire, and reached for the cutters. "Harper," Bo's voice carried from the alley, steady as a plumb line. "Take 5. "I'm fine." "You're favoring your left side. When's the last time you drank water?" I said I'm fine. He studied me a beat. then stepped back. Don't push so hard you break. If I let him close, he could get hurt. That's how it seemed to work. I set my jaw and pulled. The wire jumped. Barbs bit deep as a rattler. Heat flashed, then nothing. Then a hard, bright pain that made the sky tilt. The taste of iron hit my tongue before I realized I'd bitten it. My body bracing before my mind could catch up. Blood unspooled warm down my wrist, soaking my glove and jacket cuff. I wrapped it with my bandana and pretended the red wasn't already pushing through. Lexi swore softly. Ruth, that needs stitches. Later. I stood too fast, the world sliding sideways. Bo was there, clean and immediate. One look at the bandana and his mouth went iron. Truck, now. I can finish. You can walk or I carry you, he said, calm enough to scare me. Pick. I picked walking. I climbed in beside him, the cab thick with that same faint diesel smell I'd noticed my first day on the ranch, the morning after the miller's barn went up. Back then, it had set my stomach on edge. Now, catching sight of the half-empty fuel can behind the seat with the ranch's label still stenciled on it, the truth landed easy. He wasn't hauling trouble that night. He'd been helping. The relief came quiet but solid, like a prayer answered before I thought to ask it. You trying to kill yourself or just prove something? I was careful. Careful folks don't bleed through 2 layers. He glanced over. What are you running from, Ruth? I'm not running. I'm working. You're working like you're trying to outrun a bullet. If I stop, I have to think, I said before I could close the gate. And if I think, I see Daniel and the letter and the way the sheriff looked at me like wind puts evidence where it wants. If I work hard enough, if I do this right, maybe I can keep Naomi safe. Maybe I can keep you. I swallowed hard. People from getting hurt. That's not how safety works. Then explain it to me. His hands tightened on the wheel. You can't work your way out of grief, Harper. You can let folks stand in it with you. Nearest dock's an hour out, he said finally. You won't make it that long. I'm fine. You're not. He turned off the main road. We're going to Cole's. Why? Because he's still the best at stitches this ranch ever had. I pressed the bandana tighter, blood seeping between my fingers. Bo, no. Ruth, you're losing blood. You need help. Not his. His jaw locked. He's my brother, and he's steady. I didn't answer. The world had narrowed to pain and engine noise. Fine, I whispered. But you stay. Wasn't planning to leave. Cole opened the door before Bo could knock. His gaze dropped to my hand. What happened? Barbed wire. North pen, Bo said. That pen hasn't been touched in weeks, Cole muttered, then stepped back. Kitchen table. The house was spare but clean. Boots lined at the door, a jacket hung on its hook. A photo on the side table with a cracked pane splitting Cole and a smiling woman down the middle. The kind of photo people keep for the memory, not the ending. Sit, he said, rolling up his sleeves. He washed his hands, methodical. Bo hovered close. You forget who stitched your shoulder the night that bull caught you? Cole said without looking up. Bo huffed. Still got the scar. We didn't have money for vets, Cole said. Half the time it was patch the horses, patch the fences, or patch each other. His voice dipped quieter. Some things you can't patch, though. Some things stay broken no matter what you do. Bo's brow furrowed. You okay? Cole didn't answer at first. He threaded the needle. His hands were steady until they weren't. Just a tremor, barely there, before he clenched his fist and forced them still. Fine, he said. Long day. He unwound my bandana, brow tightening. That's a clean cut. Wire jumped, I said, home. Old wire tears. This sliced. He threaded again. Either someone just strung that fence or someone wanted it to look old. Bo's voice cooled. You saying it was set? I'm saying it doesn't happen by accident. Who sent you there? Mara. His hands paused midair, then kept working. Then maybe ask what else she's fixing. Bo's jaw flexed. You got something to say? Say it. Cole looked up. I don't hurt women, Bo. His eyes met his brother's, then flicked to me. That's not who I am. His eyes said he wanted to believe it. Any more, I thought I heard him add under his breath. But the needle was already moving, and I couldn't be sure. This'll hurt, he said. I can handle it. Yeah, he murmured. You always could. The first stitch bit deep. I flinched, but he didn't pause. Bo's hand landed on my shoulder, solid, grounding. Cole worked fast and clean. 6 neat stitches, gauze wrapped firm. Keep it dry, he said. Change it daily. Tear it open and you'll regret it. Thank you, I said. Cole's jaw worked. Don't. The word came out rough. Just watch your back, Mrs. Harper. The way he said my name, careful, weighted, made me wonder what he wasn't saying. Something flickered in his eyes then, gone before I could name it. As we drove back to the ranch, I caught a glimpse of Cole in the rear view, still standing in the doorway, smoke curling from his hand, watching, not threatening, not cold, just watching, like a man at a funeral who couldn't leave until the last mourner was gone. A few hands were clustered near the tack shed as we pulled in, coiling rope and talking easy. Lexi's laugh carried first. Rodeo's in Stonehaven Friday night, she said. Heard Bo's riding the last slot. Jace whistled low. Crowd always loses it when one of the Lawson boys takes the gate. Another hand chuckled. You goin'? Wouldn't miss it. I slowed, half hidden by the fence post. Bo riding. The thought landed warm, then guilty. I had no business caring whether he stayed on a bull or not. But the ache that followed wasn't about bulls. It was about wanting proof that something could still hold steady when the world bucked. Before I could stop myself, I said, You got room for one more? They turned, surprised but grinning. Sure, Lexi said. Always room. Friday night 7. Wear boots you don't mind getting dirty. Can't promise I'll stay long. Don't matter, Jay said. Sometimes showing up's the hardest part. Their laughter followed me as I crossed the yard, pulse too loud in my ears. By the time I got home, Naomi was at the stove, apron dusted with flour, Bible open beside the cooling rack. The house smelled like yeast and soap, the kind of peace that made the day's chaos feel twice as loud. She turned when the door shut. You're late. Cole had to stitch me up. Her brows rose. Stitch you up? Wire on the north pen jumped. I'm fine. She set down the spoon, crossed to me, and took my wrist before I could pull back. Her thumb brushed the edge of the bandage, light as breath. Fine isn't what that looks like. It's nothing, just caught wrong. Her gaze held mine, steady, knowing. The Lord doesn't ask you to bleed for his attention, child. Then what does he want? For you to trust him, she said softly, even when your hands are empty. I tried to smile. That's harder than fixing a fence. Then start the same way, she said, one wire at a time. Her thumb lingered over the bandage again, tracing the line underneath. Funny thing about scars, she murmured. They heal slower on the inside. Later that night, I sat at the table long after the dishes dried, the house quiet but alive with its own kind of breathing. Pipes, crickets, the hum of something steady. I didn't pray for justice. I didn't even pray for peace. I prayed for clarity, for the courage to keep looking, to see what needed seeing, and to stand where others turned away. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like listening. Out past the ridge, a truck engine growled, fading towards Stonehaven. The sound crawled under the quiet, too slow to be passing, too sure to be lost. I rested my hand over the stitches and whispered, Help me see what I need to see. No answer came, but the air felt different, charged, awake, waiting.